Well, before celebrations take place in Israel for Independence Day, this evening marks Yom HaZikaron, which honors the soldiers who fell in the line of duty and the lives lost to terrorism here in Israel. As war continues inside of Gaza, it's a difficult Remembrance Day for thousands of Israeli families as we mark the death of 316 soldiers this year and 79 civilians killed in terror attacks. ILTV's Shosh Bedrosian is in Kiryat Shaul Military Cemetery with more details. Shosh?
Emily, this is just one of several locations across the country where military ceremonies will take place. Some of the families of these fallen soldiers are actually here right now, already placing candles and flowers on their loved ones' graves. A difficult year for the state of Israel and the hundreds of people impacted by war and terrorism. The emotional day of Yom HaZikaron honors the memories of heroes and the lives cut too short, while it serves as a day of reflection for Jews and Israelis around the world. With renewed fighting in the Gaza Strip, the IDF marks the lives of 316 new fallen soldiers and 61 disabled veterans who died this year from injuries in previous wars. The Defense Ministry announced the total number of military casualties since 1860 is now more than 25,000. Magen David Adom is honoring one of their own volunteers this year, 25-year-old Yonatan Chaim, who was killed in battle in southern Gaza in December of 2023. The lone soldier, who was born and raised as a Christian in New York, converted to Judaism after studying the Holocaust in college. He moved to Israel in 2020 and volunteered with Magen David Adom and donated blood through their organization. This year, the group marks more than 36 of their own volunteers killed since October 7th. With the help from an anonymous donor from Switzerland, Chaim is now being honored with this new ambulance. His 5 friends reunited by staffing its inaugural shift.
Yoni was one of those people who is always smiling. And I remember when we first met, he walked into the classroom after I'd been teaching for a full day, and there was then this evening course for the master students. And I was tired at the end of the day, but Yoni walks in with a smile on his face, says, "Nice to meet you." I say, "Nice to meet you too." And instantly I was infected by his smile.
The Defense Ministry also says 79 civilians were murdered in terror attacks this year, plus 778 civilians murdered in the October 7th massacre, as families mourn the innocent lives lost because of hatred and ongoing terrorism inside and outside of Israel. The families of hostages are still hoping they will be reunited with their loved ones sometime soon. 59 hostages are still being held by Hamas terrorists, with half of them believed to be alive in serious conditions and health problems underground in the tunnels. And a nationwide siren sounded at 8 o'clock Israel time to commemorate the innocent lives lost. Emily?
All right, thank you, Shosh, for that. And now joining us to discuss the current mood in Israel as we approach Yom HaZikaron and Yom HaAtzmaut is Israel's Special Envoy for Innovation, Fleur Hassan Nahum. Fleur, thank you for being with us today. Israel is still in a state of war with multiple fronts active. We've lost hundreds of lives in this year so far battling the threats. What is the mood going into this Memorial Day?
You know, the mood in Memorial Day is always so bittersweet. We have such a high price that we pay for living as sovereigns in our own homeland. This particular year, and of course the year before, has been particularly painful. So many beautiful young men and women, their lives have been lost because they have made the ultimate sacrifice. They are protecting their homeland, they're protecting their people, and they and their families have paid the ultimate price. And it's kind of almost like the story of the Jewish people in 2 days, in 48 hours, the tragedy of the loss, and then the celebration of our liberation to have self-determination in our homeland. It's such an emotional roller coaster the next 2 days.
Now, we do still have 59 hostages in Gaza, seemingly no end in sight. Certainly the families are feeling that way. Is this impacting Israeli society's approach to the Independence Day celebrations that are coming?
Absolutely. How can we completely celebrate full-heartedly? How can we dance when we know that we still have 24 living hostages in captivity and so many bodies of our dead over there? They are going through their own personal Holocaust, those 24 living hostages. And so for the last 2 years, it's been very bittersweet. There's a campaign, as you know, Emily, of the families and the friends of the hostages saying there is no independence without getting our kids out of those dungeons. And that really is the mood. We're going to be dancing, but we're going to be dancing with tears in our eyes.
Now, in general, it's highly unusual that a nation has a Memorial Day for its fallen soldiers, victims of terror, followed by a massive Independence Day celebration the very next day. Why does Israel do this? You sort of alluded to this a little bit, but what lesson or lessons can be learned from this?
You know, it's very interesting because I think the Jewish people were one of the only people that can put tragedy and we can put celebration almost next to each other. When we have weddings, we break the glass and we remember the falling of the Second Temple. We remember the falling of Jerusalem. And so it's very much built in to our psyche, built into our culture, built in to our religion and values, that alongside deep tragedy, we must always be people who look forward. We look forward to developing, to thriving, to productivity, to growing. It is very much part of the Jewish psyche. And like I said, these 48 hours are an incredibly difficult emotional roller coaster. But this year, as last year, it's even more bittersweet when we know that 24 of our people are still living a Holocaust right now.
Now, finally, there are many heroes who fell fighting just in the past year as well as victims of terror. Is there a particular story that has impacted you?
Yes, well, I'm not very objective, but there are two wonderful young men who have fallen in the last year, who are from my neighborhood here in Jerusalem. One you all know very well, Ahush Goldberg Polin, who was taken from the Nova Festival. He was a young man who I know from when he's a boy, a little boy. I was at his bar mitzvah. And he was at the Nova Festival. He was a paramedic in the army. He was looking forward to his year of traveling after serving his country, and he was brutally taken. His arm was blown off, and then went through a grueling experience as a hostage until he was executed. And of course, everybody knows his incredible parents, Rachel and John, who did such an amazing job of bringing the story of Hirsch and all the other hostages to the forefront of international media. But there's also another wonderful young man called Yuval Shoham from my neighborhood as well, who died in an army accident, as many soldiers, more than we would want, do. But he's a young man whose parents are incredibly active in my neighborhood. He was a wonderful leader of the B'nai Akiva groups in my neighborhood. He was a leader of my children. And when he was in Gaza, he would go around Gaza shouting Hirsch's name to see if somehow he could rescue his friend. And so those two wonderful young men that we've lost in the last year is an incredible tragedy, not just for my neighborhood and for the city of Jerusalem, but also for the entire country and the Jewish people.
Absolutely. Well, may their memories be a blessing along with the other fallen soldiers and victims of terror from this past year. And of course, since the reestablishment of the State of Israel in 1948. Unfortunately, we're out of time, but thank you for shedding some light on this difficult day for us. Thank you, Fleur.
Thank you, Emily.
In a rapidly changing Middle East, Israel must stay ahead of emerging threats. What cutting-edge technologies will keep Israel safe? Brigadier General Professor Jacob Nagel reveals the bold strategies and breakthrough defense tech he recently recommended to Prime Minister Netanyahu in an exclusive security briefing from the American Technion Society.
Iran is weaker than ever, and someone has to take the opportunity doing something about it.
Visit ats.org/Nagel to watch the full briefing now.
Well, within 12 months, the war will end and Israel will win. That's the word from Minister of Strategic Affairs Ron Dermer, who signaled a potential end to the war in Gaza and on all 7 war fronts in another year. We have more from ILTV's Devil Klein.
In a rare public interview, Strategic Affairs Minister Ron Dermer became the first Israeli official to put a timeline on the war and its end.
12 months from now, the 7-front war that began on October 7th will be over. Israel will have won, and I think you will see many peace agreements that are either have been forged or will be forged in the coming years of President Trump's presidency. He was, in a sense, the father of the Abraham Accords, but I think there are many countries that will want to make a peace with Israel. But the key to that, and this is important to remember, is victory.
Dermer cited progress toward victory in Gaza and on other war fronts.
And for a lot of people, they think you have to choose between those goals. There are people you'll meet in Israel who say, you know, forget about the hostages, just finish the war. And there are people who say, forget about the war, just return the hostages. Well, we're not going to do that. That's not where Prime Minister Netanyahu is. It's not where I am. I think we have to work on achieving those goals, and we've gone pretty far. We haven't finished.
Interviewed on the second day of the JNS conference in Jerusalem, Dermer also related to the U.S.-Iran nuclear talks that are underway and appear to be making progress. Dermer said that Prime Minister Netanyahu remains determined to prevent Iran's nuclear weaponization.
He hasn't just been talking about it. He's been acting against it. Had it not been for Prime Minister Netanyahu, Iran would have nuclear weapons a long time ago. What he has done, both in mobilizing the world and raising international awareness about this problem, but also the actions that Israel has taken, sometimes by itself, sometimes in coordination with others that I'm not going to get into, has delayed Iran's nuclear program, but it hasn't stopped it. And when the Prime Minister of Israel says he will do whatever he has to do to prevent Iran from developing nuclear weapons, believe him. Believe him.
The notion that giving land to the Palestinians will result in peace must end. In the aftermath of October 7th, the dangers of creating a Palestinian state in Israel's heartland have become even more evident. Israel 365 Action, which is running in the election for the World Zionist Congress, calls for a one-state solution governed by Israel. They call for a Jewish state that fights discrimination against Jewish communities in Judea and Samaria by strengthening and expanding these communities. Zionist values need to be reinforced. Connections between Jews and Christians need to be solidified, and refusal of a Palestinian state should be a top priority. Be the change you want to see in the region. Vote for Israel 365 Action now by scanning the QR code on your screen.
Well, Israel has said it rejects the hearings underway at the International Court of Justice in The Hague regarding Jerusalem's obligation to allow humanitarian aid into Gaza. Foreign Minister Gideon Sa'ar said that it is UNRWA that should be on trial. More from ILTV's Steve Leibowitz.
As the ICJ opened a week of hearings in The Hague, Foreign Minister Gideon Sa'ar said that Israel-UNRWA cooperation will not happen.
Israel decided not to take part in this circus. It is another attempt to politicize and abuse the legal process in order to persecute Israel. The goal is to deprive Israel of its most basic right to defend itself.
Sa'ar called UNRWA an organization infiltrated beyond repair by terrorism.
The UN has become a rotten, anti-Israel and anti-Semitic body. Clear evidence shows that under the UN and its Secretary General, UNRWA employed terrorists who took an active part in the October 7 massacre. He then covered it up.
The Israeli foreign minister described the ICJ hearings as a distortion of its UN mandate.
The case being heard in The Hague this week is fundamentally distorted. It should be against UNRWA. Under the disguise of UN agency, UNRWA is a Hamas proxy. It completely betrayed its mandate. UNRWA employed over 1,400 known terrorists. Many of them took an active part in the October 7 atrocities.
Israel halted aid deliveries to Gaza on March 2nd after the end of the ceasefire arrangement between Israel and Hamas.
Well, progress has been reported in the hostage for ceasefire talks. Strategic Affairs Minister Ron Dermer traveled briefly to Cairo, leading the Israeli negotiating team for talks with Egyptian mediators before returning home. A Hamas delegation was in Cairo earlier in the week as mediators tried to reach what is being described as a significant breakthrough. Talks are reportedly focused on a 5-year ceasefire between Israel and Hamas. Despite the reported progress, an Israeli official did caution that there is no chance Israel would agree to a deal that allows Hamas to rearm, recover, and continue its war against Israel. And today we have the privilege of hearing once again from Yael Eckstein, president of the International Fellowship of Christians and Jews. She shares with us a recap of some of the most important headlines from recent weeks. Let's take a look.
Shalom, my friends, from here in the Holy Land. I'm Yael Eckstein, and here are 3 things that you should know about Israel this week. Number 1, in some Israel news, Ambassador Mike Huckabee recently landed in Israel to take on his new assignment as being the U.S. ambassador to Israel. The first place he went when he landed was to the Western Wall to put a prayer from President Trump for peace for Israel. I was at the president's residence in Jerusalem as Mike Huckabee presented his credentials to Israel's president, Isaac Herzog. They believe that they were placed in these positions to bring blessings into the world and goodness to all of God's people. Number 2, in a positive update, former hostage Noah Argamani was named in the top 100 most influential people by Time magazine. Everyone saw Noah's face when she was kidnapped from the Nova Music Festival by Hamas terrorists. Thank God she was freed. But she has not stopped fighting for a second to bring all of the hostages home to Israel. Congratulations, Noah, and we pray you will succeed in your efforts to bring all of the hostages home. And number 3, in fellowship updates, we just finished the holiday of Passover, where the International Fellowship of Christians and Jews was able to distribute Passover aid to over 220,000 people around the world. This is more than food, though. It's a message that Jewish and Christian people stand together, especially now, and take care of people who need our help. Well, there you have it, friends. There are 3 things that you now know about Israel. Join me next week, same place, same time, for more updates on what's happening in the Holy Land. Shalom.
Well, amid high court challenges after his firing by the government, Shin Bet chief Ronen Bar has announced his intention to resign from his position on June 15th. More from ILTV's Steve Leibowitz.
Speaking at a memorial event for fallen agents, Shin Bet chief Ronen Bar accepted personal responsibility for the agency's failure to prevent the October 7th Hamas attack and announced that he would resign in the middle of next month.
אחרי שנים בהרבה חזיתות, בלילה אחד, בחזית הדרום, נפלו השמיים. כל המערכות קרסו, גם השב"כ כשל במתן התראה. כמי שעומד בראש הארגון, לקחתי על כך אחריות, ועכשיו, בערב המיוחד הזה, המסמל זיכרון, גבורה והקרבה, בחרתי להודיע על מימושה ועל החלטתי לסיים את תפקידי כראש שירות הביטחון הכללי.
The announcement comes after demands by Prime Minister Netanyahu and the government for Bar to resign over sharp differences between them. Bar stressed the importance of protecting the agency's independence from political influence and said that he would cooperate with the ongoing High Court case over his dismissal in order to ensure that the agency remains free from political pressure. He also said the bereaved deserve a full investigation of October 7th.
את האמת ואת אשר צריך לתקן נדרש לעשות רק במסגרת ועדת חקירה ממלכתית. האמת מגיעה לכם והיא מגיעה לנופלים.
Netanyahu's move to dismiss the Shin Bet chief triggered the petitions to the High Court that have yet to rule on Bar's dismissal.
Especially in the wake of October 7th, trauma is known all too well by the citizens of Israel. Israelis who want to live in peace in their homeland often have to pay a very heavy price due to terror, and children pay the price too. That's where Shiloh Israel Children's Fund comes in. They seek to heal the trauma from terrorism in children so that they can grow into adulthood with a brighter future. Joining us today is David Rubin, the founder of Shiloh Israel Children's Fund. David, thank you so much for joining us today in studio. I want to ask you just to start, was there a specific moment or an event that made you realize this was a project you really wanted to do?
Well, yes, absolutely. 24 years ago, I was wounded in a terror attack along with my 3-year-old son who was shot in the head. Our car was ambushed as we were coming home to our home in Shiloh from Jerusalem. And after that night, I realized, you know, when we found out everything, my son had been shot in the head. The bullet missed his brainstem by 1 millimeter. So after that, and all of the terrorism that we had already experienced at that point, I knew that I wasn't the same. I had to turn this into something good. And that's how the Shiloh Israel Children's Fund was born.
Can you walk us through some of the key programs that you offer through this organization, this fund?
Certainly. Well, it's mainly trauma-based. The idea is to heal the trauma of the terror victim children, to help to restore some of the lost innocence to their lives. And when we do this through formal therapy, we actually blend therapy with education. And we have informal therapy programs using animals, using music, using art. We also have formal therapy programs like specifically music therapy where the child will sit with a therapist, art therapy where a child will sit with a therapist, sports therapy, multisensory safe room therapy, horticulture therapy, and many others. And it's all under one figurative roof of the Shiloh Israel Children's Fund. And I'd like to encourage people to go to our website, which is israelchildren.org. Can't get more simple than that, israelchildren.org, and they can find out more about what we do and how they can participate.
Absolutely. And I wanted to ask you, in light of the fact that there are many organizations for children, what's unique about the Shiloh Israel Children's Fund? And you mentioned already the website, but how can people support the work you do?
Sure. Well, the scope of our work is incredibly broad. We support a wide geographic range in Samaria, and we also support the programs through age 18 from childhood. We're specifically focused on children. So anyone who wants to help terror victim children, and every child is a terror victim, the degree of PTSD is so great at this time, and not just at this time. Sure, it got greater after October 7th in the whole country, but we've been experiencing this for about 25 years. So people should go to the website, israelchildren.org, and see how they can stand with us on whatever level that they're able to.
Absolutely. Well, unfortunately, we are out of time, but I want to thank you for all the work you're doing and, of course, for coming in and sharing with us more about this important cause and organization. Thank you.
Thank you.
And now let's take... Well, before celebrations take place in Israel for Independence Day, this evening marks Yom HaZikaron, which honors the soldiers who fell in the line of duty and the lives lost to terrorism here in Israel. As war continues inside of Gaza, it's a difficult Remembrance Day for thousands of Israeli families as we mark the death of 316 soldiers this year and 79 civilians killed in terror attacks. ILTV's Shosh Bedrosian is in Kiryat Shaul Military Cemetery with more details. Shosh?
Emily, this is just one of several locations across the country where military ceremonies will take place. Some of the families of these fallen soldiers are actually here right now, already placing candles and flowers on their loved ones' graves. A difficult year for the state of Israel and the hundreds of people impacted by war and terrorism. The emotional day of Yom HaZikaron honors the memories of heroes and the lives cut too short, while it serves as a day of reflection for Jews and Israelis around the world. With renewed fighting in the Gaza Strip, the IDF marks the lives of 316 new fallen soldiers and 61 disabled veterans who died this year from injuries in previous wars. The Defense Ministry announced the total number of military casualties since 1860 is now more than 25,000. Magen David Adom is honoring one of their own volunteers this year, 25-year-old Yonatan Chaim, who was killed in battle in southern Gaza in December of 2023. The lone soldier, who was born and raised as a Christian in New York, converted to Judaism after studying the Holocaust in college. He moved to Israel in 2020 and volunteered with Magen David Adom and donated blood through their organization. This year, the group marks more than 36 of their own volunteers killed since October 7th. With the help from an anonymous donor from Switzerland, Chaim is now being honored with this new ambulance. His 5 friends reunited by staffing its inaugural shift.
Yoni was one of those people who is always smiling. And I remember when we first met, he walked into the classroom after I'd been teaching for a full day, and there was then this evening course for the master students. And I was tired at the end of the day, but Yoni walks in with a smile on his face, says, "Nice to meet you." I say, "Nice to meet you too." And instantly I was infected by his smile.
The Defense Ministry also says 79 civilians were murdered in terror attacks this year, plus 778 civilians murdered in the October 7th massacre, as families mourn the innocent lives lost because of hatred and ongoing terrorism inside and outside of Israel. The families of hostages are still hoping they will be reunited with their loved ones sometime soon. 59 hostages are still being held by Hamas terrorists, with half of them believed to be alive in serious conditions and health problems underground in the tunnels. And a nationwide siren sounded at 8 o'clock Israel time to commemorate the innocent lives lost. Emily?
All right, thank you, Shosh, for that. And now joining us to discuss the current mood in Israel as we approach Yom HaZikaron and Yom Ha'atzmaut is Israel's Special Envoy for Innovation, Fleur Hassan Nahum. Fleur, thank you for being with us today. Israel is still in a state of war with multiple fronts active. We've lost hundreds of lives in this year so far battling the threats. What is the mood going into this Memorial Day?
You know, the mood in Memorial Day is always so bittersweet. We have such a high price that we pay for living as sovereigns in our own homeland. This particular year, and of course the year before, has been particularly painful. So many beautiful young men and women, their lives have been lost because they have made the ultimate sacrifice